got my laces tied. My trusty podcast by my side. If you wanna talk fun, it's the place to be. Yeah, it's the drop, D-R-O-P.
All right, I'm here with Zach Litoff, and how I'm kind of getting interested in Zach is because I'm seeing some of his work online, seeing some of his stuff actually in person, and he has something that I would consider somewhat of a connection to myself in that we both seem to be illustrators and seem to focus on running as far as a way to express ourselves. So Zach, welcome to the drop.
Yeah, honored to be here. Thanks for having me on, and I can't wait for this conversation.
Yeah. So I think one of the first times I saw some of your work might have been for like a cross country race for Nike or something like that. Why don't we start in the beginning? Like, how did you get into illustration design for starters?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how far back you go, but basically, the very last day you could declare a major in college, I declared as an art major. I switched from physics to studio art.
So it wasn't it wasn't an art school. It was general.
No, it was like I went to Santa Clara University and I was on the track team there.
All right.
Definitely not an art school. A decent art program, but kind of heavy on the business side of art, which honestly was helpful, I think, for me. But basically COVID happened. So everything went online starting my junior year. So basically right as I declared, which caused a lot of like art classes to kind of get put in like a digital limbo, which also ended up, I think, playing to one of my strengths. And I started posting some of my artwork online. And then as I like got better at running, more of my friends moved into either professional running or working in the running industry, and kind of like gained some connections there. And then stayed around college for about as long as I could until I ran out of eligibility. And then when I graduated, when I graduated, I started looking for jobs, and the job hunt in the design world, as I'm sure you know, can be ruthless in the beginning. And I had some like agency experience from during college. So I kind of knew how to do I feel like working in an agency sets you up well for freelancing because your agencies are just like really efficient freelancing operations. So I kind of like started leaning into that and got a couple lucky projects for Nike to start out. But yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The agency life is a great place. It's kind of like if you want to get into the shoe companies, maybe starting off as a tech rep or working in a running shoe store. Same thing for art and design. I think if you go to an agency, you're going to learn how to operate at a different speed and like also understand the business a little more. It's not just about
you
what's
learn
cool
the business
for you.
side of it.
Yeah, what turns out. So you mentioned eligibility. So do you have a track background?
Yeah, so I do. I ran track and cross country in high school. And then I ran track and cross country and indoor at Santa Clara. So I ran 5.5 years because of COVID. We got the like extra 6th year, but I didn't do track my 6th year because I only started redshirting during COVID. So I only got back half a year, which was kind of weird, but basically I ran track. I was a steeplechaser, worked my way up, had a pretty successful career, nothing super special, but definitely proud of it.
So the distance was mostly is a steeplechase, but like what other distances did you run on track?
Yeah, I ran 5K, the mile. I basically ran everything long distance wise except for the 10K. I never ran a 10K because I was trying to avoid that.
Oh, wow.
But now I kind of wish I ran one, but I'm...
Now that you're done with school, are you continuing to run? Like, are you doing events? Like, what's your distance that you like?
Yeah. So I've been graduated for 3 years, and I've run like one race seriously, and then one race kind of not seriously. But I have a race in 2 weeks that I've been training for. So like, and then I've run a couple marathons. I've kind of been like in and out of the like running hard. I feel like it was a hard transition for me because I was like, when I was in college, I was training as hard as I could. It was kind of my like day job basically. And now I'm still training pretty hard, but like I'm probably training at like 80% of what I was doing. And so there's this like, I'm not as good, but I also have gotten older, so I've gotten better in that. But I do have my first like race in a while that I've been training seriously for in like 2 weeks. So I'm hyped for that.
What race is that?
Beta breakers. So it's not like a normal race to run hard, but
Yeah, I
it's a
see
12K here in San Francisco. I helped work with the branding for it, so figured I
Yeah, I
should.
saw that. That's one of the things that I thought was like really interesting because it was like, I know you've done some t-shirt design, you've done some event design, but with the Beta Breakers design, it looks like you're doing everything from soup to nuts for the event. So, I mean, everything from t-shirt to promotional to online to medals, it's all coming out
Yeah.
of your creative end. How much fun is that for you to, and then we'll talk about Beta Breakers, but how much fun is it for you to take on a project like this and get kind of like the whole, top to bottom?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was a blast. Beta breakers, especially just because it was like a race I had run in college. But I think being able to like, it makes me realize how much more important it is too, to be able to take all those things. Like before I was just kind of pitching to companies or being like, hey, I can do your t-shirt or I can do this one thing. And now like seeing how much more of an impact you can have when you like fully affect the brand and go in and be like, hey, like these two things should be in conversation with each other. We can roll this out early. We can, if we do this right, we can use it as promotional material. Like just kind of like being in the marketing room and the design room all throughout the whole 1 year process leading up to the race was really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've worked with races, and we did that kind of pre-COVID. It was one of the things that we did was help promote races. So I've done shirt and medal designs and help with branding for a race, but you don't really feel the full impact till you see it on race day, and everything that you've done is wrapped around like the start line, the finish line. You see people with the t-shirt or the medal, and it just all comes together, and you've created almost like a little universe of design. I think you're going to get a kick out of actually seeing it in the real world. I know that for me, when I would design a t-shirt or something, seeing it in physical is like a thrill, and seeing somebody wearing it is even better. What's that like for you when you see some of your designs are going up with brands that like blow your mind, like either, some of the top ones, or why don't you tell me who some of your
Yeah,
top
yeah.
brands are?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most mind blown I've been was the first project I did, which was like a small T-shirt for Nike for like this trail run up here in San Francisco called the Ninja Loop. And then, it was like a small event of probably like 30 people that they rolled it out for, but then they continued to sell it. And now I see it all over the place around the city. And just like seeing your designs in the real world is one of the coolest feelings. But then like the first big race I did or big project, I think was probably around Hoka, like Foot Locker. I designed their maps, and seeing like all the high schoolers pose in front of it was a really cool experience. And then I've done a couple medium sized races, but I think Beta Breakers in 2 weeks is going to be a like jaw dropping experience just because there's like, 10 to 30,000 people run it, and the whole city comes out, and they branded the flags on the side of the course and the finish line and the medal, and like the entire process will be kind of like in this design that I came up with, which will be really cool.
Yeah. So Beta Breakers is a little bit different. Why don't you describe for people kind of what it means? Like for me, the year I ran it was right after COVID. And so I think it was a little bit watered down from what you
Probably.
normally
Yeah.
experience with it. So can you give people an idea of what makes this race special?
Yeah. Basically, I'd say it kind of like sums up San Francisco. So if you hate San Francisco, you're probably going to roll in and be like, well, what is going on? And if you love it, you're going to love it. But it used to be one of 3 days you're allowed to be naked in the city. Now I think the rules on that have probably changed, but there's like the occasional naked person. A lot of people aren't racing it. A lot of people are walking it. And it's basically like a day party in the streets. There's like houses along the course will basically set up like DJ booths, and will kind of like have parties along the street. So a lot of the people, if you're doing a 12K, a good amount of people finish, but like getting to the finish line isn't always the goal for everyone. Just like being out there, being a part of the party is a lot of the goal. There's like parts of the race where people run backwards because there's a certain hill. And it basically, I would describe it a lot more as like a moving day party, where the finish line and the aspect of the race is an extra rather than like the full purpose. But then, there's like the centipede race, which is a thing where like runners will like tie themselves to each other. You get in a group of 12 and you have to stay bungee corded together. And like, the goal for them is to finish, and being a part of that, I've done that a few times and that's really fun. Like, it's not only a party for everyone, but the whole city kind of comes out, and the theme is less about like running PRs and running fast or winning, and more about like, just having a good time moving.
Yeah, it was pretty competitive when we were there, actually. Like maybe it was in the section that I was in, but yeah, the centipede racers are insane. For people who don't know, like you can have a team run the event, but it has to be a minimum of what, 7 people?
I think so. It might be 7 or 12. I'm not fully sure.
Yeah, it's a good ridiculous. And when people come off, they unhook themselves, and another person has to come in and hook themselves in. But I was like blown away, like the men's pro field or whatever did it in some ridiculous. It was like it's sub 6 minute mile.
Yeah. I did it on a centipede once, and I think we averaged 5:20s, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's fun though, because like if you are not a if you were to run it by yourself and your goal pace is 5:30 and you're on the team that's running 5:20s, since you're on a bungee cord, you're getting pulled by someone who would be running 5 flats. So like you can kind of get this fun, like you're running the average pace of everybody, and everybody's racing at the same effort, but some people are pulling and some people are getting pulled. It's pretty cool.
See, the
centipede's like a really special thing for the race.
To get pulled for the race. The other thing I saw, there's, like you said, there's nudity, plenty of that. And there's a lot of costumes. So I thought it was like a pretty cool event. And then you end up down by the beach.
Yeah.
So it is actually Beta Breakers. You one side of San Francisco to the other side. And like you're talking about racing it, and I talk about that centipede speed, but that's over some intense hills. It's not like a 520 on that is insane.
Yeah. No, I've been like training for, I say like it's a race a lot of people don't try and win. I'm trying to go and run pretty hard on it. So I've been training, and like my whole training is based around the fact that like 2 miles into this race, there is it's like 3/4 of a mile, half a mile hill that's at like 8% grade, not including the rest of the hills throughout the whole course. But there's this one hill that's just like so terrible. So yeah, it's definitely a tough course. Yeah, it's like you see it and you're like, we're not about to run up that, are we? Like, yeah.
Well, I felt peer pressure because in the groups that I was with, there were people like doing the centipede race, and there was other people. So you're like, let's just not stop. Let's just go. But I can see how there would be no shame in walking it if you wanted to.
No,
but I
like slowed down a ton on it when I ran it hard last year.
Do you know if you've already been picked up again to do the creative for the race for next year?
I've been talking with them. The way I set up the design is so that I don't have to do nearly as much in the future, which for like a business decision for me is not as ideal, but like a lot of it was like, I'm not going to give them a whole new logo again next year. Maybe like, 5 years in the future, they change things, or like if it's the 120th annual one, we might, do a special iteration for it. But I have been talking to them about doing stuff for next year, and I'll definitely come back and help with a lot of the things, just because some of the design style is stuff I know probably more comfortably than other people, but definitely not to the same extent I did this year, which I think is good because it means that they can like do a little more on their own, and the budget's a little easier for them to work with them.
All right. So I noticed that, looking at your artwork, for me, the inspiration that looks like it comes from is almost like a digital Matisse paper cuts kind of style.
You got it on the tee.
Is that it? Or I was going to ask you to describe it.
I mean, there's other inspirations too, but like a big part of the pitch that I pitched to them was like going Matisse paper cut vibe.
All right. So as you've evolved, you started off, doing designs. Do you like, I think for all of us, it's like when you do something, you're really happy with it for maybe a day or two. And then the next comes along and you're like, oh, I could have done that better. And then you kind of bring that into the next project. How quickly do you go through that process?
I would say that's definitely like, as any designer knows, that's like pretty heavy part of the process. I try to not focus on it too heavily. But I definitely would say like, one thing that was nice about that project is since I wasn't just working on it for like 2 weeks or a 1 month sprint, like I had time to be like, I would have made this design and be like, oh, I'm going to go back and change that. Or like, I'm going to leave the big ones till the end. And the beginning was a lot more about building an entire design style that I was happy with. I definitely like look at it now and be like, oh, I maybe would have changed a thing here or a thing there. But overall for this project, I'm pretty happy. For most projects, I would say I pretty quickly start critiquing myself pretty hard, but like,
Yeah.
you kind of have to. It's a good way to grow too.
Yeah. It's interesting because you said that you had all this time to do this project. And typically if I have too much time, then I just wait until I don't and have to jam it all out. But that's good that you were able to get a head start there. It's good work ethic.
Yeah.
All right. So you finished that project. Yeah. Obviously you've got other stuff.
I mean, I had other projects I was working on at the same time, which kept me busy.
Yeah. And you kind of were throwing ideas out for, Cherry Blossom, which I would agree with you. They struggle with design, the Cherry Blossom here in DC. So I saw you put together a concept for them. Is there a particular event or brand that you're like, hey, that would be amazing to work on?
I mean, Cherry Blossom was actually kind of one of those ones that I was like, that would be sick, just because I've heard so much about that race. I mean, I could throw out like, I think doing something for a world major would be insanely cool. Like a New York marathon would be awesome. London. There's like the Bloomsdale race in Spokane, which I have a ton of friends that like have run. For me, growing up in Boulder, doing stuff for the Boulder, it's been like a dream to do the main like Boulder t-shirt. Which is cool because I'm working with them this year, not on the main shirt, but on like starting some like conversations about designs. So I did like some artwork for this year's race for them. So like hoping to do it for next year. But I would say like world majors and then probably just like some of the big major road races are like the dream ones for me.
Do you think it's an advantage that you run, or do you think it happens to be, hey, there's not a ton of people going after these particular clients? Like, how are you finding like interest in your artwork?
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely like one thing, you have to carve out a niche in the design world. There's just so many people that are so broad that if you're not like niche into something, it definitely is like a hindrance. So like from a business point of view, I think it's crucial, but also just like, I think having run, I know it so much better, and my whole family's run. So like I see all the race shirts that my dad had from back in the day, and like, I've done a lot of research into running, and I know like how it used to be, and not that it's gotten lamer, but I think things have changed. And I'm enough invested in the community where like, I'm not just like a random designer that's like, oh, it'd be cool to pitch to this project that not a lot of other people are pitching to because it's running. Like when I do designs for a race, like my friends are probably running that race, or I know the people putting it on, or I have like run clubs that are in that community, like where I kind of feel like I get more benefit from helping uplift the running world because I've been a part of it. And also I care about it in a way that I think like, I'm not going to leave the running world. I grew up running kind of has given me who I am, that we're like, it's not as much giving back as much as like, I'm still a part of it. So I want it to be cooler so that it is cooler.
Yeah. So you said, you made a comment that it's gotten lamer, or,
yeah.
It was cooler back then. It's kind of funny because in some ways I think running's gotten cooler lately.
Yeah.
But in some ways I think you might be right. It's also gotten lamer. How do you do? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think running as a sport has gotten cooler, and you can see it with like the personalities that are running are now more popular in pop culture. Like to be a runner in high school now, I feel like I kind of started happening while I was in high school. Like it's no longer a like weird sport. It feels like it's now a cool sport. But the like races, I feel like have become a lot more lame, at least the artwork surrounding them. Like I feel like you see all these race artworks from like the 80s, or it'd be like the San Francisco Marathon, and it's some like they hired some painter to do some sick mural and they made a poster out of it. And it was cool. It probably wasn't as profitable back then because there were a lot less people running. But the like design and aesthetic around running, I feel like has gotten more corporate at the same time that the like culture has gotten more like authentic. And I'm sure it's like a lagging indicator. So like, I'm sure in the next 10 years, the designs will probably become really cool, but they definitely fell off a bit, I feel like, from the 80s. at least from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think what I miss about it is almost when I look back at the old race shirts and things. There's somewhat of a clip arty look to it, like when you see the two people jogging next to each other with like the stripes or something. You know that they just pull a clip art and put it together like that. But I also know like some of the races they would have a local artist like paint something and put that on a shirt. I think some of those are hit or miss too. But yeah, it's
Totally.
at this point though, I think the tough thing is a lot of the stuff looks the same. So it's like
I would agree with that.
It's like you come
and I think
in.
I've
The
already
fonts
started
are
to
right.
see it a little bit with like AI art. I've seen some races use AI art for things, and like AI art has a very specific style right now, and I'm sure it'll get better, and like that's its own conversation. But it is funny, like, and I feel like it's kind of the same thing with the last 5 years. It might not have been AI art, but like, everyone was using the same font, same like design aesthetic of just like basic, somewhat corporate running art, where like it passes all the tests of like, the hierarchy is not bad, and it is centered on the shirt, and they know roughly what they're doing, but they lack the like personality behind what actually makes the race cool.
Well, you brought up AI art, and I think it's almost weird, almost like a intuitive thing inside of us that I don't know if everybody has it, but I'm sure from an artistic perspective, you could almost immediately tell, okay, this isn't human made. And I do think that there is a little bit of there's a style that AI is doing right now, or that at least people like, which is sort of that they're using references, even if you look at it from Pixar to whatever, so that you're seeing the same stuff. But there's something offensive about it in some way. And I don't mean that in offensive, like an opinion offensive, but like there's something that I look at and it doesn't look as beautiful as something handmade to me anyway.
Yeah, I agree, but I like try to think about one of my tests for if I think a design is good is if I were to roll up on it in 20 years in a thrift store, if I'm like, oh, that's sick, like I want that. And my like thing is, I feel like if AI art becomes the thing, it won't be cool. But if there's this like 2 year, 1 year period where we're in right now, where like AI is just blowing up and companies did it, I feel like it could be cool for 1 or 2 years where everyone's like, oh, that was this funny thing that just like was weird and they did, and it's so obviously AI. But like the same way where if you go back, I'm sure right in the beginning of digital art, clip art was like a thing. And I don't use AI to make my art. I'm not like trying to defend it. I hope it doesn't become a thing, but I do think the style is like a unique and obviously AI in a way where like, if it's a short blip, I could see it being interesting for like a year or two, but I hope it doesn't stay.
I think where I wouldn't mind it being used is if it allows people to articulate what's in their head and translate it into art. That to me is in the same realm as picking up a pencil and translating what's in your head to paper.
Yeah.
I think that it will be, what I'm excited about with the AI stuff is people who don't have artistic skills that may have good ideas that can then
Totally
get those ideas out in a visual way. It'll be interesting to be able to see people. I think we're going to see how people think more as we go through it, because
I agree.
they're going to have to communicate that and put it out there. So that'll be interesting. Like Days of the Artist being like assigning meaning to something after it's created, I think will shift a little bit.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think we're seeing the era where everyone can become an art director now. Whether you're the actual person creating it, you can at least like take your ideas and put it out and be like, this is what I want. I might not be able to make it the last 10%, but I can put my idea that I have in my brain out there for you to see.
Yeah, I've played around with it. It's fun as like a nuance thing, like I can turn my logo into a Muppet or whatever. But
I feel like
when
if you
it really
haven't
comes
tried
down
it,
yeah. Oh, you haven't or have?
No, I have. I feel like if at this point you're a designer or in the creative world and you haven't opened up an AI app, then like what are you doing? Like, not that you should be using it or you have to use it, but like, you got to see what the technology is, you know?
But the thing is, though, like if you have a specific idea, like say you're designing for beta breakers, and you're
Yeah.
trying to, create a layout. I think you could get elements. I think it's really tough to get, like right now, at least the way that the prompts are working, to get an idea of what you want in a shot of that is difficult.
Totally.
I think you got to do
Yeah.
it
I feel like
piecemeal.
I kind of tried this, not in a like trying to make art using AI, but I was going to make an Instagram video that was like, they say, I hadn't come up with the prompt or the hook or how I was going to do it, but it was going to be along the lines of like, AI art isn't going to replace me because look at what AI made. And I like tried to come up with basically what I had come up with using AI. Like I put in the Matisse references, like put in some reference, like I basically gave it a designer's honest go at what can this thing make, and I wasn't that good. And it was like weirdly like still very AI styled, even though I tried to point it away from it. But kind of like what you're saying, where like it's good, but it's still like, a little off.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that like even if for me, I was like thinking about it like there's like Ozempic and all this stuff, and I got into running when I was like out of shape, and I was like, okay, I need this, and I'm like, if I could take a pill and be in like perfect shape, would I miss running? And I feel like it's almost the same correlation to the digital art. I'd miss the process of creating. Like I think there's something. It'll be interesting to see how the technology evolves. But there's something about actually having to sit down and build a skill that makes when you finish a project something like you take pride in. Whereas I think if you
Totally.
plugged in, hey, I want a Matisse cutout design for this race and make it fun, whimsical.
Yeah.
It's all the details, and it spits it out. It's not that it's. I don't think you'll get the same satisfaction out of knowing that something in your brain was
I
translated to your
agree.
hands and through. So
I agree.
I don't know.
100%.
I
The
think
like
it'll be
process of
interesting. So you've got a running goal coming up. You got beta breakers. You've got this design done. What are some of the things that you're working on project wise right now that are going to be coming down the pipe?
So I kind of briefly mentioned it, but I'm doing some stuff for the Boulder, which is on in a couple weeks. I did. I've been working with Brooks a lot, doing some like apparel designs for them. Been working with like
retail apparel.
yeah, so that'll be cool to see come out. I'm not fully sure or allowed to say exactly when it comes out or what it is at the moment, but I'm pretty stoked with how the designs have come. And then I'm also not fully allowed to say, but a like pro hockey team that I'm doing a design with. That's like sounds like it's outside the running world, but it is still kind of inside the running world if you knew the whole project. But that's been a really fun one to work on. And then a lot of like run club projects, which I think is like pretty cool. I kind of see like the run club culture right now as like something that I find really interesting. I kind of compare it to like almost like punk culture back in the day. Like it's this like kind of grassroots, like getting up at 6 a.m. grinding type of thing. So it's been really fun to like work with different run clubs that some I know pretty well and some I don't know as well. But that's been like a lot of my smaller projects have been.
Where do you find most of your projects come from? Do they come from people who've already seen designs, or does it come from Instagram or another platform?
I would say like at this point, 50% come from Instagram, then like 40% come from kind of repeat clients where it's like someone I've worked with, which a lot of those might be like referrals from like people that I have worked with. And then a very small amount is me reaching out to people, but I'm trying to get better at that because that's how I got Beta Breakers, which was one of my bigger projects. And I feel like that's kind of how you take the next step as like a freelancer to like not become an agency, but like, if you work in an agency, they're sending out pitch decks all the time. Like, kind of working on that is something I'm trying to get better at as well. So hopefully in the future, more will come from that.
Yeah, it does seem like some of the brands that we work with, they have some favorite designers and artists that they like to continue to go back to. And so it does seem like it can be a pretty good relationship for a designer to be working alongside a brand or an event like that. So that's pretty awesome. All right, man. So like, other than that, you've got Beta Breakers coming on, you've got your art career. What do you see in the future? Like, what's the big goal?
Yeah. I feel like I get asked this question a lot, and I'm somewhat like aimlessly going, but not really. I feel like I kind of like, I kind of mentioned in the beginning, but I, in the beginning, applied to jobs and then kind of freelanced out of necessity of like, okay, I haven't got a job, so I got to start freelancing. And now I like it way more. So I'm like rolling with that. I would love, kind of my thing to turn into an agency at some point, like bring people on and like take on bigger clients and do more. Like I've learned a lot of like how to do photo shoots, and I've done a lot of multimedia work, and like doing kind of more ad campaigns would be really cool, and like becoming a more, full house agency. But I had like a brief period where I was working for Apple doing like a contract. And I've done small contract projects for like some running companies. And I do think like the few experiences I've had out of the freelancing world, I like get so much better so quickly, just because, when you're freelancing, no one's looking over your work. And then when you're in-house or at an agency, you have like intense critiques all the time. So like realistically, I could see myself working for a company for a little bit before going back to like freelancing and trying to build my own thing. But long term, I think I'd love for it to kind of turn into something bigger than just like me freelancing in my studio. But
Yeah, I think that's always a tough question to answer. I think that, coming off, you are, especially when you're in a creative world, you're stacking bricks. So it's like every time you finish a project, it builds on the next. So it's really tough to say, okay, for the future, here's where I want to be. Cause sometimes you're just following opportunities and making the best out of things as they come along, like someone who's quite a bit older than you, like going through the creative thing. I do think it's an amazing time to be in the space though, because there's so much opportunity. Whereas, and also like to enter it, you really can. I don't know what you're using most, whether it's iPad or if you're using, desktop or whatever for most of your design. But there's so many different ways to create now. What are you gonna say?
I mean, what would I would say I definitely use the iPad a lot, but I feel like you were probably not too far off of me back in the day. Like if you were to look at what I'm doing, what would you tell yourself back in the day, or what would you tell me? Like what would you think?
I mean, you're in a really good spot already. So, being that, I think that I was passionate about design first. And then it translated into, what I became interested in as an adult. Then I pulled up what I had for me as a creative into that space. And there's nothing better than when you're working on projects that you love both ends of it. So it's like, I love being creative, but I was doing stuff for Black & Decker and doing a piece for a drill. I don't even do any home improvement stuff myself. It was like, that's great. I really like, I like the artwork that came out nicely, but you're like, I have no passion about the end product. So when you marry the two, and I'm sure you're going to do it when you finish Beta Breakers and you have on your shirt that you designed for the event, that's a little better than any other, use it. Like I even did, I'm not into tennis. I did stuff for the USTA and I wore a tennis shirt and everybody would always ask, oh, do you play tennis? I'm like, no, like it didn't, they didn't come together. So being able to marry this stuff together, and I'm sure as you mature and stuff with your art, your interests are also going to grow and change. And, even your style could change. So I think just embracing that kind of like, already you seem to be trusting your gut and following a niche and going into it. And I do believe that niches are the way to go, especially as things get broader and broader. People want it more personalized. And you can tell when someone does a design and they're not in the space,
Totally.
So
Yeah.
I think it just adds to the authenticity. So it's one hurdle to get over that your clients won't have to discuss with you. It's not like, okay, at a race, nobody would be wearing that, or nobody be doing this, or something like that. You already have a language already involved with your art. But yeah, I mean, I do think, getting the experience of working with an agency that is similar to where you'd want to be in the future is valuable. But, if you can find also quality creative people that want to join forces with you and do it, I think that's also, they can become the people who help critique and grow, some of your style and work and stuff like that together. So like for us at Believe in the Run, we've got a whole team, and it's not like one person's like, this is my area of expertise, nobody else step in here. We're all like, okay, let's ideas from everybody. And it's interesting to take it from somebody who has more of a business background versus somebody who has a writing background or a visual creative background. So marrying them all three together. So I think that would be interesting to see if that is what you're interested in, is growing that team and finding the right people to surround yourself with and build that agency.
Yeah. No, that's a good thought. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, do you have friends and people that you work with that are in the space that are either photographers or writers?
Totally. Yeah. I feel like I look at some of my friends. I mean, some of my friends have already kind of teamed up and made their own little like production houses. But I definitely have some friends that haven't, that I'm like interested in doing stuff for, but it's hard to like have that conversation of like, hey, what you're doing seems really successful. What I'm doing seems successful. Let's like risk it again and try something together. But I definitely have friends that I'm like, I would partner with them, what they're doing is cool. So.
Yeah. I think you find the right project and you say, hey, let's just try this project together.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's successful, then, there you go.
And you keep going.
But yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
But that's pretty awesome. So you're in the Bay Area.
Yes. I'm based in.
Are you in San Fran?
Yeah, so I'm in San Francisco. I live right next to Golden Gate Park, which is, anyone who's in the city knows how good it is for running. My take is San Francisco is probably like.
Is that close? So when we ran with a runner's mind, we ran up in the hills there. Yeah. That's a sick area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. You can't beat that.
It's pretty top notch. I always say that like San Francisco gets slept on as like, I think a lot of pro runners want to be in either like a altitude location or LA or New York, just because the content comes out better in LA or New York. But as far as like actual training goes, if there was minus the altitude, I think San Francisco is kind of like maybe the best city there is. There's just so many trails.
Plenty of hills too. Yeah, well, we did the Marin on the Marin side. Yeah. We did the North Face 50 miler. That was brutal. Like so much climbing.
Once you cross the bridge, it is so hilly.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It broke Megan. She'll never do another 50 miler. But yeah. All right, man. Well, it's been nice getting to know you. I look forward, like you're someone that I like, okay, this. When I first saw designs, I was like, oh, this is good. He's got some talent. It's going someplace. And then I saw more of it. And I'm like, oh, this guy's sticking around. This isn't a one-hit wonder. And I continued. Yeah, I like watching. Like I like watching your Instagram and kind of seeing you grow and kind of hit more products. I think some of your storytelling you're doing on Instagram is fun. Some of the reels and. I think you just got to keep hammering and keep it going, and we're going to see more of you in the future. If right now people want to get in touch with you, is the best way through Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram's probably the easiest. I have a website as well. So my Instagram is at Litoff Studios, which is LITOFF and then studios. And then my website is the same thing, just litoffstudios.com. And if you're not big on Instagram, I have if you just go to my homepage, you can contact me from there as well.
For the longest time, I thought it was Liftoff Studios. I was
I get that all the time. Liftoff. It's honestly not bad.
I'm like, oh no, it's Litoff. It's his last name.
Well, I've always said that if I make an agency and bring in a ton of other people, and I don't want it just to be based around me, I'll just change it to Liftoff because it's basically
I like it. I mean, I was like, oh, that's a clever name.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. It's been great. It's been great. It's nice
Yeah.
getting to know you.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Give a good stretch, got my laces tied. My trusty podcast by my side. If you wanna tuck run, it's the place to be. Yeah, it's the drop. DRO.